I'm Agnes Thornton, and on what should have been a routine Tuesday, I was mid-presentation when everything flickered out, like a TV losing reception. The remote slipped from my grip, the slide froze on a chart about market share, and a spike of light pierced behind my right eye. Someone asked if I needed some water. I said I was fine. Then the carpet lurched upward, the ceiling slid away, and I blacked out. I came back to myself in a haze of antiseptic and the beeping of a monitor marking each beat of my heart. A doctor stood at the foot of the bed where a client should have been. Her badge glinted with initials I didn't recognize. "We called your parents," she said. "They told us they were on their way." She glanced toward the clock, as if the hands might explain the empty doorway. But time stretched thin. Hours passed. Still, no one walked in. The plastic wristband pinched my skin. I whispered excuses in my head. Flights get delayed. Schedules overlap. Families make simple mistakes. The lies came too easily, practiced until they almost sounded like truth. By evening, the light outside burned copper against the skyline. In my lap, my phone buzzed. A red notification flared. My sister Clara's tag. I tapped it, and a glossy picture filled the screen. Matching shirts, a roller coaster framing a brilliant sky. My parents, grinning beneath a banner that said, "Thornton Family Day." The caption was short but devastating. Family Day without the drama. This time the room didn't spin, it contracted. My tongue tasted metal. Down the corridor, a nurse laughed, an ordinary sound in a place where I felt branded as something expendable. Optional. Not worth turning the car around for. I pressed the phone face down like a sizzling pan and let the monitor keep tallying my pulse. I matched its rhythm, not with minutes, but with choices. If family didn't come from blood here, it had to come from somewhere else. On the outside, we always looked flawless. Neighbors used our Christmas photos for inspiration. My father, Gerald, ran a prestigious architecture practice, suiting him in tailored jackets and a constant aura of authority. My mother, Marilyn, enchanted classrooms of third graders and carried that classroom patience home. Except, it seemed, when it came to me. And then there was Clara, 3 years older, effortless perfection. The proof lived in every photo. Clara radiant in the middle, hair shining, smile rehearsed to brilliance, while my parents tilted toward her like flowers finding the sun. Me always at the edges, caught in half light, holding ribbons that went unnoticed or projects no one bothered asking about. I think back to the science fair when I was 14. My volcano erupted dyed red foam right on cue. Dad gave me a brisk nod, then drifted immediately toward Clara's exhibit, an elaborate solar system model polished enough for a museum. He ushered colleagues over, beaming, while I crouched to wipe fizzing foam off the floor. On the drive home, he said, "Why can't you work as hard as your sister?" I turned to the window instead of replying, swallowing hard. It wasn't that I failed. I made honor roll. I joined debate. I spent weekends volunteering at the shelter. But Clara's spotlight was so intense, it erased me. When she won first place, my second disappeared. When she brought home an A+, my A was brushed aside as mediocre. Even my milestones bent around hers. My 16th birthday fell on the same weekend as her sorority formal. My parents drove 6 hours to help her prepare, leaving behind a store-bought cake on the counter for me. A sticky note sat beside it, "We'll celebrate next week." We never did. By graduation, I stopped expecting anything different. My parents came with their cameras, clapped as my name was read, then spent the dinner afterward toasting Clara's engagement to Travis, the medical student with perfect credentials. My acceptance letter from a university out west earned only a mild. That's a long way from home. Exactly why I chose it. I needed space, far enough to finally breathe without her shadow falling across me. Still, the shadow of those comparisons clung to me. Every holiday call carried the same refrain. Clara's children, Clara's home, Clara's career leaps. My updates slipped in like afterthoughts. By then I understood the unspoken rule. In our family, affection wasn't portioned out evenly. It was measured, and Clara's portion was always bigger. Leaving for Denver felt like stepping out from beneath a canopy I hadn't noticed was blocking the sun. The air there cut sharper, thinner, almost taunting me to inhale deeper. My one-bedroom apartment with cracked tiles and a window facing a parking lot was small and imperfect, but it belonged to me. No one measured it against Clara's sprawling colonial, and no one sighed over grandchildren I hadn't given them. Work became my tether. I landed a job at a fast-rising marketing firm downtown, and the city consumed me in a way that felt oddly freeing. Campaigns, tight deadlines, long nights basking under fluorescent lights. They became proof that I could stand on my own. Every client who signed, every idea that landed, was its own quiet act of rebellion against the invisibility I'd carried back east. I built a life structured around my own rhythms, not family expectations. Saturday mornings meant strolling through farmers markets, buying flowers even when my budget said I shouldn't. Evenings sometimes led me to pottery class, my lopsided bowls wobbling like drunken dancers, yet no one told me they failed to measure up. Friendships began to gather around me like little constellations. Co-workers who invited me to trivia nights. Neighbors who cared for my plants when I was out of town. They weren't lifelong bonds, perhaps, but they were mine. Chosen, not inherited. And still, at unexpected moments, the ache would surface. Watching a colleague's mother celebrate her promotion with a tight embrace. Seeing reunions at airports, signs held high, tears spilling. The yearning for recognition, for someone to rest a hand on my shoulder and simply say, "We're proud of you," never quite left. The calls home never filled that space. My mother's voice always warm, but scattered, cataloging Clara's children's milestones before I had the chance to share my own. When I announced landing a multi-million-dollar client, my father replied, "That's good," then immediately asked if I was seeing anyone. Every conversation left me oddly hollow, like I was presenting to an indifferent boardroom rather than speaking with parents. I told myself the miles created freedom, that choosing solitude was not the same as being overlooked. But beneath that rationalization, I knew the truth. No matter how far I went, the absence of their love still traced each step I took. Then came the morning it all shifted. I woke with a headache clamping around my temples like a vice. I brushed it off as nerves. The pitch I'd spent weeks polishing was too critical to miss. A national brand had asked for a full reinvention, and my boss had handed me the lead. This was my shot to prove myself, maybe to finally secure that promotion I had chased for years. I dressed with care. A charcoal suit that had cost me half a month's rent, paired with the silk blouse I reserved for days when I needed to wear my confidence like armor. At the office, the conference room buzzed with anticipation. Executives entered one by one, all watchful gazes and sharp-edged questions. I smiled, steadied my hands on my notes, and began. For the first 15 minutes, everything clicked. Each slide flowed seamlessly, statistics underlining my words, my voice calm and sure. Then suddenly, the ground seemed to lurch beneath me. The faces in front blurred to watercolors, voices distorted, and the ceiling lights blazed unbearably bright. My fingers clung to the table's edge, grasping for stability. My own voice drifted back to me, distant, disembodied, like it belonged to someone else entirely. Behind my eyes, pain sharpened into a searing, white-hot point. I reached out for my glass of water, but my hand wouldn't obey. Colors bled together. The room slipped into a blur. Someone said my name, their voice edged with panic, but I couldn't respond. My legs folded beneath me. Darkness consumed everything. When awareness returned, I was inside an ambulance. A paramedic leaned over, asking things I had no words to answer. Sirens screamed. Light pulsed across the windows, and fear pressed on me heavier than the straps across my chest. The next moments fractured into fragments, staring up at sterile hospital ceilings, the headache-bright glare of fluorescent bulbs, the sharp tang of disinfectant filling the air. By the time I was clearly awake, machines pulsed steadily at my side, leading me to reality. The doctor leaned in close. Her voice was steady. "You collapsed at work. Severe exhaustion, maybe complications. We're running tests. We called your emergency contacts." A pause. "Your parents? They said they were coming." She didn't finish the thought, but I already understood what it meant. That first night in the hospital passed like broken glass. Nurses appearing to check vitals, the hiss of oxygen drifting from somewhere down the hall, my own mind rattling like loose metal. I kept my eyes on the door, waiting for it to move. Every sound of shoes in the hallway lifted me, only to let me crash when they passed me by. By morning, hope had thinned into something fragile and brittle. I tried to tell myself flights were missed, or plans had tangled, but a deeper part of me knew the shape too well. Disappointment was already familiar, an old companion since childhood. Being left behind had its own hollow taste. Later that day, when the room grew quiet, I reached for my phone. The screen blinked with notifications, and for a breath I thought it might be them. Missed calls, worried texts, something. But no, the top alert was a tag from Clara. My thumb hesitated, then tapped. The picture filled the screen. Bright, joyful. My parents, Clara, her husband, their children, all smiling big at the entrance of a theme park, dressed in matching shirts stamped with Thornton Family Day. Their faces glowed with the ease of it. The caption cut deeper. Small but savage, Family Day without the drama. My chest caved inward. They weren't simply absent. They were celebrating that absence. Without the drama, those words meant me. The messy one, the daughter who spoiled the photograph by existing. I flipped the phone face down, but the words seared straight through, burning quiet holes in me. The bed groaned as I shifted, struggling for air past the knot in my throat. Tears threatened, but I forced them away. Crying wouldn't undo anything. In that moment, the truth carved itself hard and clean. Even this, collapsing, a hospital bed, fear of something broken inside my head, wasn't enough to make me matter. Nothing ever would. I stared into the dim light, my heart pounding, and thought about all the years I had spent begging for their recognition. Maybe this was the end of begging. Maybe it had to be. The morning after that tag, I opened my eyes to see someone sitting in the chair beside me. Not my parents, not Clara, but Elena, a junior copywriter who'd only joined the firm a few months earlier. She looked up from her phone, her face warming into a smile. "You're awake," she said brightly. "I brought your charger and some pajamas. I used the spare key you gave me. Hope that's all right." Her kindness cracked something open inside me. I'd barely known her long enough to exchange a few coffee break conversations. Yet there she stood, tote bag filled with pieces of my life, keeping vigil when the very people who should have been by my side didn't bother to come. Later that night, during a shift change, a nurse named Jordan stepped in to care for me. She brimmed with chatter, smiles coming easily, and she didn't flinch at the sight of my empty visitor's chair. "You'd be amazed," she said while straightening the line at my fore. "More patients than you'd imagine go through big procedures alone. But here's the thing, once you're inside these walls, the staff becomes family. We'll hold you up." That word, family, hit me like a stone thrown into deep water. To me, that word had always meant rejection, a slammed door, love with conditions. To hear it spoken so freely, without strings, felt almost as foreign as another language. The test returned, confirming my worst suspicion since the collapse, a tumor pressing against my brain. The neurologist delivered the plan flatly. Surgery was the best course. I should have been shattered at those words, but instead my mind locked onto one thought. Who would be in the waiting room when they wheeled me away? Not my parents, not Clara, but there was Elenina again. After finishing work, sinking into the chair by my bed with bags of snacks and endless office gossip, her light-hearted chatter pulling me away from the storm inside my chest. Jordan came by in steady intervals, the calm of her presence like a lighthouse beam in the dark. Strangers, almost. Yet they were the ones who kept me from going under. That night, an idea surfaced for the first time. What if family wasn't blood at all? What if it was whoever stayed when everything else crumbled? 3 days into my stay, my phone lit up. Not with apologies, but with desperation. 17 missed calls from my father, 22 from my mother, nearly 30 from Clara. At the bottom of the flood was a single message. Grandpa had suffered a stroke and he was asking for me. My chest ached. Grandpa William, the only one in the family who'd ever seen me as myself without comparison. The one who called me his clever girl, who never once sighed that I wasn't like Clara, The man who sent handwritten notes in college just to tell me he was proud. And now he wanted me near, while I lay tethered to a hospital bed with a tumor carved into my skull by scans. I pressed the call button. When Jordan arrived, I showed her the screen. They ignore me for days, I managed, brittle-voiced. And now they want me. She studied my expression, then perched gently on the bedside edge. The question isn't what they ask of you, she said softly. It's what you want. Later, when I finally dialed my father, he answered instantly. Agnes, where have you been? We've been calling for days. No greeting. No concern. Only blame. I've been in the hospital, I told him evenly. Collapsed at work. They found a tumor. I underwent surgery. Silence stretched on, so long I thought the call might have dropped. Then his voice stammered, stumbling over words. Why didn't you tell us? The hospital did, I cut in. You chose roller coasters over me. Another silence, heavier, thicker. At last, his voice broke. We didn't think it was serious. The truth hung there, undeniable. What mattered to them had never truly been me. Still, I steadied myself. I want to see Grandpa. Can you arrange a video call? A pause, then a weary yes. We'll set it up. When I hung up, my hands trembled, but my center felt firm. If they wanted to play pretend now, let them. This time, I would speak my truth, unshaken. The video call came that evening. My father fumbled with the camera. My mother lingered in the shadows. Clara leaned too far forward, eager to commandeer the frame. But through all that, my eyes found him, Grandpa William, propped in a hospital bed, smaller than I remembered. His words came out heavy, slurred but firm. There you are, my bright girl. I forced a weak smile, trying to disguise the bandage wrapped around my head, though his piercing gaze found it instantly. What happened to you? He pressed. Just a minor operation, I murmured, barely audible. He didn't buy it. A tumor, he stated flatly. They told me already. And you faced that alone. His question split me open. I couldn't stop the tears from sliding free. Yes, Grandpa. Alone. He shook his head faintly, then turned his tired eyes toward the others. And why was that? The silence from their side said everything words wouldn't. Clara was the first to fidget. We didn't realize it was so serious. The sharpness in my own reply surprised even me. The hospital called. That should have been more than enough. But still, you chose the theme park, splashing cheerful photos online, while I counted stitches. My voice broke. Do you understand how that felt? Clara's expression fell, stricken. My mother gasped, hand over her mouth. My father cleared his throat, searching for something to say. Grandpa spared them. For years I've watched this family pour everything into Clara while Agnes faded into the background. I stayed quiet, thinking it wasn't my place. But I'm running out of time, so I'll say it plain, you failed her. Over and over again. The weight of it hung in the air. My father tried to protest, but Grandpa's glare, still fierce despite the sickness, shut him down. I spoke through the burn in my throat. I don't want apologies. I want change. I want to count even when it isn't convenient. For the first time, they looked unsettled, not angry, not defensive, just shaken. Clara dropped her gaze. My mother's cheek shone wet. My father looked suddenly small. Grandpa's hand trembled as he reached toward the camera. Agnes, stop running from them. Speak your truth, then choose your path. Running only leaves the herd surviving, not living. I've said mine. I told you already, I whispered. And I won't run anymore. Whether they see me or not, that's their choice. 2 weeks later, against my surgeon's hesitant warning, I boarded the eastbound train. Every rattling mile pulled at the stitches in my head, but I had to see Grandpa one last time. When I slipped into his hospital room, he managed a faint smile. His eyes, though dulled by the stroke, still shone bright. You came, he breathed. Of course, I said, wrapping his frail hand in mine. You were always there for me. I needed to return that. A few days later, still holding my hand, he slipped away quietly. The grief was sharp, but it was clean, like air after a storm. He had left me clarity in his last words, clarity about who truly cherished me and who never really did. In his will, he left me the cabin by the lake, that cradle of childhood summers. It became my refuge. Each sunset I stare at the dock and watch the sky move. And I know this. Family isn't always the people who raise you. It's the ones who lift you. Who sit beside your bed with your son, who remind you, just by showing up, that you are